Okay, so gents, important discussion to have on the fact that when we lead a team, you can't lead a team unless you have a team. So I think for all of us that are finding ourselves in a place where we have to execute, lead, guide, establish, inspire, and then you look in the mirror in the morning and you say, it's me and who else? And we have to have the ability to get a team together, identify the people, and get people to join you in what you want to do in order that ministry can take place. So our discussion is on that. So how do you do that? You walk into a space, you are called by God, the power is there, the conviction is there, you feel a little lonely, but now we have to build teams. You guys have all built teams over many years, not people that are paid, people that choose to volunteer their time, and we call it called ones that are following the calling. But let's talk a little bit of what does it take to identify that individual to become part of your team, to get things done the way that God positioned you to lead. Martin?
I think it starts with relationship. It takes a long time for people to start listening to you, and the moment that you enter a space, and maybe you're a new worship leader in an existing congregation where there's already a team. Now you walk into that space, and just because you have the title, you think you have the leadership there, and you have
the voice, the respect, everything.
Yes. Or you might have the talent and think, well, that earns me, that gives me the right to lead these people. And I've just learned it takes a long, long time. I remember a story. My first campus that I started in Doxa Deo, and my first week, my first rehearsal, I walked into it with this expectation, like we're going to do this impartation, we're going to teach about musicality, etc., etc. And they were all sitting there listening to me and going, yes, this is great. And then the next week we came back and I asked, okay, so what have you done with this? And they looked at me with these big question marks on their face.
Done with
saying,
what?
Like, done what? What are you talking about? And I realized that it might be a nice idea, but they don't believe me yet. They don't know me yet. I've not invested into their lives yet. I've not valued them yet. Shown and respect and earned my respect over a period of time. And that takes much longer than we want to.
And we have to be honest about the time it takes to build teams. I think maybe first thing to say, because I remember when I just started in a campus many years ago, worship leader, the first day I was introduced, I think there were 50 people. I thought, glorious.
Yeah, wonderful.
What a team, nothing to build. You walk into the space, people are ready. Yeah. The next week, 7 people. I was like, okay, these are the true people. Or they forgot to come last week, so they were curious this week. But I think it's 2 different scenarios, walking into a team that you inherit and you building one. But do you know
I think, for me, the most amazing thing, how Jesus approached that, the thing of relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, with Peter and Andrew and John, I mean, he came into their space and he first built that breach of relationship, looked them in the eyes and called them to something.
Yes.
He said, come and follow me. And then they left everything, and they didn't know what was at stake at that stage, but they were willing to actually follow him. And I think the key within that is to actually go and find people where they are. That relationship building.
And speak their language.
And not tell them, come over and take the first step. I mean, as a leader, you go into their world, you go into their space and call them to the team. I mean, in that, for some people, that is the most amazing privilege to be called into the team. But I think Jesus was so intentional, but he looked for certain things in the people that he called, in the disciples that he called. They were not the head boys and the head girls.
The cream of the crop.
No. And I think sometimes as worship leaders, you always want that ideal person in your team.
Yes. And you pray, God, send me the ideal person. And what he's actually trying to say is, open your eyes, they're there.
Who's in front of you?
They'll become the ideal people.
Yes.
But I think it's very easy to stand on this side now after many years in building a team, and people might look at us and say, well, you've got a big team. This is easy for you. It might be easier. But I think over the years we've learned so many lessons. I think there's probably a list of people who do not like me very much because I made mistakes and they were the guinea pigs on which I made them.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm so thankful for grace. But the fact is, there's so much material on leadership. But I think for us, developing people, valuing them first. But there's a definite change for me where I have to start, after there's influence, after there's relationship, there must be a next step, a call to responsibility.
Yes.
I think that for me, that made a very, very big difference. It didn't come natural for me.
Otherwise you can't put a demand on people later on in the journey. That damages the relationship actually. For me, I think it's that the first step is obviously relationship, but then to put the the thing out there, this is the expectation.
This is what we're
This is
busy
the
with.
call to commit to the team. And then they grow into that. Some people will, answer to that call immediately, and some people will have to be developed to answer to that.
But I think we have to probably grow in our wisdom and discernment on where
Absolutely.
people's journeys are. Because I remember when we were in London, no team, so we planted campus.
Yes.
So it's you
From scratch.
Yes, and I remember
You and the
I
Holy
was
Spirit.
worship leader and a guitar. That was it. And then I remember when we doubled our band, and I got a lady to play the piano with me.
100% growth.
It was really incredible stats those years. But then things grew slowly, and every person that joins that team, afterwards I had to think, why did that person choose to associate with us?
Yes.
Because I think if you have somebody that recognizes the ministry, somebody's new into church, now they knock on worship team or creative team or whatever, I want to be part of that. They see an expression, they get an image of what this ministry looks like, and people will respond to an invite. Don't you want to join? And I think we can go into that discussion maybe in a minute of, if you get 5 people standing in front of you, what do you do before you connect with them? Because now it's not you necessarily going to find people, they are knocking on the door of an existing ministry,
Yes,
which is one scenario. I think for those guys who have a build a team with 2 people or 3 or 5, that's interesting, because I thought, what would make the second person join that team? And there's something about that vision. You said when you put it out there. Because I had leaders, young guys coming to me saying, listen, they've got an issue because they want to build a team, but nobody wants to go for a coffee with them.
Yeah.
Because there is a lack of vision or a recognition of, do you believe it for yourself?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think every discussion that we've had in these sessions, I think is so important to have before you go into this one, because if you know who you are, you understand your calling, you know what the arts are, you know what the mandate of us as artists are in expression, that must be so clear before the first other person will go, listen, we've got no team. And that early adopter kind of spirit, I'll be part of that.
Yes.
And I think we need to just encourage one another. So if you're at that place, find that 1 or 2 people that will carry this vision, this heart with you. They will probably stay with you for 50 years if you nurture that relationship
exactly.
right. But I'm curious, have you guys had those that you felt, this person carries it with me so well that even if I'm down, what roles do these guys play in terms of your... does names come to mind when I mention this type of person?
Yeah, many. It helps in a sense to have been in a space for a long time and to build that relationship, because it takes a long time. I think that's very important to say. It is not a quick fix. You have one coffee with somebody and then they just sign their life away and say, this is okay, right, sign me up. It takes time.
2 coffees.
2 coffees at least. If it's good coffee, then yes. But no, it takes time. But it's different with. I think once you know as a leader that the people in my team or those people are not there to help me out. Because I hear that very frequently from worship team members, from worship leaders
Curse
saying,
word in worship.
yes,
You never
I
help
just
out.
want to help out.
We don't
I
need
just want to
helpers,
come
no.
give a little back to God. People say that. I hear that all the time in auditions and etc. I think as a worship leader, you have to make that big decision in your life to say, listen, people aren't going to come help me out to fulfill my vision. This is the church.
Yeah.
We create space for people.
Part of the body, you've got
We
to...
create an environment and a platform for people to come and live out their calling on a sustainable long-term level. And that's been kind of this motto in my life over the last couple of years, to say, listen, this is what I do. Yes, I'm a spiritual leader. Yes, I'm a musician, but that's far down the line. First, I help create space for people to come live out their calling. And then it's very easy because there's no pressure for them. They have to now come fulfill this role for me so that I can have, do what I want to do. Instead, it's like, no, listen, what is God saying in your life? What is He doing with you? And there's many people in my team now that over time we've built this relationship and built this, and I've seen them grow in their responsibility and their maturity, just doing life with them, and see them living in their calling. And it's such a beautiful thing to actually.
But you need to know how to communicate that to your team, that people know what they sign up to. Because I think it's one thing, I need helpers, who are going to help me out will be one kind of person. And if you're saying, guys, we have a space where people with a calling to worship God passionately is created for you to be part of.
Yes.
Because now you are setting out the vision in such a way that people going, well, I can sign up to that. Nee. And so I think if that is not clear, then I think what you're saying later now, now it changes. I don't sign up to that. What exactly is our mission together? And if it's unclear, you'll struggle to build a team.
Yeah, and I think the key for that is that process before they actually join the team. I mean, I think as a worship leader, when you get someone that wants to join your team, you're so excited. So you already have in mind in the next 2 weeks, you're going to put them on stage. But that is the biggest mistake that you can make.
Okay, but let's be honest, why do we feel that? Because we sometimes just need that little spot.
Yeah,
I need the drummer.
Monday,
they come and help me out.
Sunday.
You have no drummer on Sunday, and this guy looks like he knows which stick is the left and the right one, so he must be a good drummer.
Yeah, and that's that mindset of...
He talks about tone and drums in the same sentence. Then wait a minute.
God-given. God-given.
Okay, but that is not the approach.
Yes, so I think it's more the principle of fast in, fast out. Slow in, stay forever. And I think that's as a worship leader, you will have that temptation to just bring people on board because they fill a gap, rather than, I tend to fight the fights before they join the team. I want to have that conversation with him to say, let's make the expectation very specific. And I think sometimes when we communicate that, even on a Sunday, we want people in our worship team, if you're willing to serve, just come, there's so much space, versus make it very specific. Artists want to know, what is this going to cost me?
Exactly.
And we have to put that out from the beginning and not later in the process, so that they know when they actually commit, they're going to stay forever. And I make that very clear. We don't want short-term members in our team. No. We want to journey with you.
Flash in a pan vibe.
Yes, we want to journey long-term with you. We want to help you to discover your calling and grow and develop in your discipleship and in your musicality. So,
but that's a big call, and I want to ask you guys, but because people are in this position, if we're honest, if your campus leader or your team says, we want a full band on Sunday, so there's the tension between, and I don't want to go into making that happen, but there's the tension between get a team on stage, we want a full band, because the worship is the highest priority, and it is.
Yes.
And I want to have a slow end where people really commit, so I don't have this fly-by-night, flash-in-a-pan kind of involvement. But how do you build a team that's sustainable and deal with that pressure on that side of you? But this guy's really good, and he's been a Christian for a month, so he must be mature enough. And, we justified for the sake of the pressure to get the product.
2 words.
Okay.
Session players. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So what do you
pay them? Pay them.
No, that's a very, very good question. And I hear that very frequently, young leaders asking me, listen, I have this pressure, I have to make this thing happen. There's the Sunday experience that needs to happen. I learned this from you actually many years ago, I think at a conference. You said the following with the relationship between you and your leader and your leadership team, the phrase that we are building a team. That is the priority now, above the product for a season. We want to build our team before we put all our energy into the excellence of the product, of the experience, etc. It's very difficult, but I found that the more I communicate that to my leadership team, then the pressure dissipates. Because they know this is my vision, this is where we're going. And if I have their buy-in, listen, campus pastor, listen, leadership team, this is what we're doing. We're building a team. It's going to take a while. We might have to feel like we sacrifice on this experience a little bit here and there. But if it's the vision of the team, then it's easier. If there's not cohesion and synergy there, and we butt heads all the time about that, then that probably will never happen. It's going to take extremely
You have
long.
to communicate that to the leadership.
To the leadership
What
team.
I have found
Yes.
very helpful is to actually, because the ask is always there. When is
Yes.
it going to be bigger? When is it going to be better? And I mean, I don't want to fight that. I want to take that
Yes.
vision actually to the worship team. It's very important that happens. But then I want to come back to my leadership team and give them a date, like to say, okay, we are working towards the end of this term.
Yes.
I've got these few guys that are. Then they understand my world. They understand the challenges that I have, and they can become part of the solution of that. Versus fighting them and say no. When Jesus comes back, we'll have a full stage. I mean, it creates distrust in the leadership team. So we have to find that balance.
The other thing that I think is very helpful is to not, as the worship leader, of the team leader, not to take this on yourself. It's your responsibility solely. It's the weight, the spiritual weight of, because God builds His church. But to invite the worship team, doesn't matter whether in terms of leadership level, into your spiritual journey with us.
Yes.
Say, listen, we're going to take some time as a team to pray for our audition process, for our integration process. We're going to pray for the new members. Because once they take spiritual ownership as well into that process, the team grows, because now they're suddenly more aware of who they have connection with. That's part of our church. Yes. And it's not just on you to kind of make this thing work.
I once was in a position with our technical team in a campus, and we had like one person doing sound, one doing media, and that was it.
That's it.
So there's no roster. You're just on every week.
Yes.
It makes it much easier, but not as sustainable, let me tell you. And then they said, why don't we advertise the ministry from the stage?
Yes.
We did it for 3 months. Nobody came.
Nobody comes.
And then I said, guys, that this isn't going to work. Each one of you trust God for one person.
Exactly.
So 3 months later, we doubled the team. And the ownership of the people that invited them in, suddenly the team builds the team.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was saying, guys, don't come to me, because it never works to from the pulpit go, join the worship team, it's going to change your life. That person says, I see it in you. What is that educare? What's that word? To draw out what God has put in them, And I think that, you said it earlier, that people recognize that you actually see something in me.
Yes.
And that is, you can't do it from the stage when you speak to the crowd and say, it might be in some of you, because I hear the most gifted people saying, yeah, but I'm not as good as that guy. And you're thinking, did you hear yourself sing, Bring your gifting, let's discuss it together. I want to ask you guys if we can quickly go into people want to join the team. It's one thing, and I think it's very important, what we maybe said now, is going to find people. Because there will be some watching this going, I've got nobody, how do I find people? And you have to share your
vision. I've got a buddy in another church.
What?
I've got a friend who's playing in another church. I just need to get him to start joining us as well.
Different ways to build this team, good, bad, and ugly.
Good, bad, very ugly.
But we easily rely on other ways instead of building our own. And I think it's a whole discussion leading the people that you inherit. But I think if we go about people, we build a team not because of our invitation, but people wanting to join what's already happening. So people with established teams, people you say, guys, we've got opportunities, and those who want to join. So now you've got the very eager beaver. God spoke to me in 50 dreams.
Yeah, I'm going to lead worship in front of thousands.
Yes. And many get that dream.
And I've been reluctant for a year, but now is
Yeah,
the moment.
Yes, and I bought my guitar yesterday. I'm ready on Sunday if you
Yes.
want me to. So you get those, and we joke about it, but it happens.
It happens.
Oh, yes.
And then there are those people
love them.
that you feel, where are you, the most gifted worshiper, but you don't believe in yourself on the other end, but
Yes.
you've got all the gift. But anyway, people coming in, how do you guys discern amongst all the prophecies, and I don't want to belittle a prophecy, but the personal convictions people have that doesn't align as much with if we think it's suitable. In a way, call it the audition process. To build a team from people coming in. What are those filters or those processes in short to you guys? Martin, kick it.
So we've established a quarterly rhythm where we hold auditions. And that, for one, has helped to actually have a select time of the year or multiple times of the year where we do auditions, not just at random times.
Yes.
So we advertise in the church. So there is a space to create awareness that, hey, listen, it's not just us for no more.
We have a process.
We want people to be part of us, right? But then we know it's the invitation or the people coming to us that actually helps them to sign up and physically come to an audition. So we do auditions where it's a very short evaluation and discussion, first of all, just to meet the person, to see where they're at. We ask them very select questions. We don't start with a musicality. We ask them things like, tell us about yourself. And the way somebody tells you their story tells you quite a lot about where their priorities lie. We ask them things like, well, tell us your journey with God. Just because it's a church, people are in the church, doesn't mean that they're saved. We
It's good
assume...
to check if it's Christians actually joining the band.
It will help.
That will help.
And I've actually had auditions where this person is musically extremely gifted, finding out that he has zero relationship with God.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's a very difficult thing to measure because it's not something that we can literally... It's very easy to fake. But that's where we literally need the Holy Spirit and discernment. But one of the things that's very important for me that I've learned is I don't ever do my auditions alone by myself. Because it's just my opinion, what do I sense. So I have a leadership team that I've built up in my worship team, and they will sit in with auditions and they ask the questions. And after the person has played their instrument or sang or whatever, we will have a discussion just with us as well, just about what did you sense? What did you pick up? It might be emotionally, spiritually, and then musically.
Yeah, it's important. I think too easily we start with the music, we're impressed by the gift,
Yes.
and suddenly they bypass all the other processes.
It's very easy to be infatuated with somebody's gift.
Yeah, especially if that person is the drummer that you need on Sunday.
Yes.
Eugene, same for you?
Yeah, I think I like the 3 C's, or I think Martin has got 5 C's. Maybe you want to say the 5 C's. I only have 3.
Let's pull it together, mention your 3.
Yeah, so mine is character, competence, chemistry. And I think the thing of character for me is the most important, because that is the space where you minister from, is that place of character. Do you join the team just because you want a platform for your talent, or is this a place of serving for you? The thing of chemistry, is there chemistry with a vision of our church? Is there chemistry relationally with us? I mean, sometimes you get a brilliant musician, but you can just see that they're not going to fit in this team. They're going to be so frustrated. The team is going to be frustrated with them. And then it's better for them and the team that they're not part of it. And then obviously competence. And I think there, in the different stages of a church, you need to decide, where is the competence level that we want in our team? If you build a new team, maybe the gate will be a bit more open in the beginning, but as the team matures, the gate will become more closed, and the level of competence need to grow a bit.
Yeah, there's different seasons in every team. You know, for a season we might say, listen, we want to be more inclusive, so let's... And it's not necessarily a thing of let's lower our standards and everybody who had the dream of singing, let's just invite, and everybody gets a mic and it's free for all. But how do we? Then there must be, if we're in an inclusive culture, then we have to be developmental in that sense. Is that a word? Developmental. now.
Sounds mental. I love it.
Yes.
But we have to develop people then, and sometimes I had this discussion yesterday with somebody saying, where's that line of I want to develop you versus no, go to the gym and learn your craft and then come and be part of us. But the other two things that we look at is calling. It's just from which space are you ministering from? Is it from a performance space, or is it from
conviction?
From my conviction? Do I really believe who God says I am? Do I believe that? Have I dealt with my past in that regard? And then the last thing is just context. Everybody comes from a different worldview of art, of music, and it's very difficult if you have, especially in our context, we have a lot of students that come from all over the place, and they all bring their view of what worship is together and say, okay, now we want to establish a certain culture. Let's help them with context of this is what we believe. And so for us, we do an evaluation, and I've had people where I felt the character is wonderful, their story is beautiful, their calling, but there's no competency yet. And so I encourage them, and it's not an idol's audition. There's no red buzzer or anything like that where I say, sorry, you're out. I encourage them and give them pointers. Go work on this, this, and this. We are here. Next term there's auditions again, but I give them next steps to go and work on, and invite them to come back and audition. And if they're serious about the calling,
that's the test of calling, hey?
If they're serious, they will work on their competency.
Yes.
But if it's just it's going to take effort and work, I don't want to do that. Well, we are a growing community. So
then carefully think about your commitment to the process.
And I think it's very important the feedback that you give to people that does not make the team and people that makes the team or become part of the team. Because sometimes I hear worship leaders just say, no, I don't think it's the season for you. I don't think this is the right space for you. I mean, it's really helpful to be very mature when you speak about...
It's difficult.
And it's difficult. I think... I'm not paid to lead worship. I'll do that for free. I'm paid for those moments where you actually have very difficult conversations with people because they're convicted they must be in the team, but you sense no. And how you communicate that is so important.
And I think you guys are touching on important things to protect team leaders from themselves in making those decisions. Because if Susie is sitting here and she's very convicted, and that day you just feel very shepherdy, and you feel this will be a good team to help you because you need the support, and your shepherd gifting kicks in. You load your team with people that need support that you don't have the capacity to give. And I've had it where I've allowed, my gate was a little too open in the times for the sake of those people to be helped. And we've learned later, too late for me, we're not a hospital there. We were a hospital playing. And the drain emotionally on the rest of the team became unbearable to some.
It's massive.
So I think once we started moving into a place that you do not do an audition, you do not choose the team member alone. You get a lady there with you that will go, there are motivations here that, ladies pick up stuff that we don't. No, we just, they like what I see, and they're going on, they perceive things more. So I think you need the gifting of the right leaders around you to make the call, because it is like adopting someone. It's a family. You're not just adding a team member that tomorrow it doesn't work out, next person. When you invite somebody in, you care. So when they then don't make it and you allow them in, it's like saying, I don't think you can be part of a family anymore. No, that's
very, very
family
difficult. Breaking
apart is traumatic.
It's much more hurtful to do that to have that conversation 2 years down the line.
Than have it at the moment.
At the moment.
Yes. So, and I think we think in that moment, I thought it's the right thing for them. Until worship team members where I was said to me, we can't minister anymore as a result of that. You are allowing people into the family that we don't have the capacity to help, which was very hard for me, but it is important to build a healthy team by understanding, and I think big teams can allow that. I mean, the analogy to me is, if you've got a Ford Figo, the smallest range, nothing. Has any of you got a Ford Figo? No. Okay, anyway. But
leaks oil.
Oh, really? Yeah. But if you put the aircon on full and there are 4 people in it with a trailer, that engine won't be able to go past 60. No. So I think at times I put on a trailer and it was too much for the car. If you've got a V8 truck, it won't even notice the trailer.
Yes.
So if your ministry is there, you can say, do we have people with capacity to build our team
Yes.
and go to the extent where we can add a little weight and we can handle it. I was adding too much weight until my team said, let's careful, be careful in how we do it.
Sure.
But I think then, it's part of the multifaceted reality. I think it's an art. It takes years to get to the place where you really know how. But I think that's very wise to get more people to become part of that so that you are not the one.
You're not the only one.
That makes the call and are too strict or too lenient at that time. Yeah.
I have an interesting story where I realized our audition process works. I mean, there was a lady that came for the audition and her voice was incredible. But like you said, the lady that was sitting next to me sensed something is off here. And I had to trust her in that moment to say, okay, let's not get her into the team. The next day, this lady publicly on social media badmouthed our church and we don't know her gifts and whatever. And then I realized our audition process worked. And I mean, that's the victory, is the people that come into your family or into the team, they immediately sense that value, we are valued, and you protect your team. I mean, it's the sacrifice the one for the many principle.
Yeah, true.
But I think it's very difficult because there is a space where when your team grows and that you can become slightly arrogant because we want to raise the excellence level now. So like we just want to select the cream of the crop now. And I very often have to remind my leaders and say, listen, if you were to come for an audition in the state you were in when you joined the team, would you allow yourself in?
Sure.
So it's just a humbling moment. It's a humbling moment, and not to. It's difficult because you want to allow just the very best, etc., etc. But it's not. I think to decide, are we in a season of inclusion or not necessarily, and how do we lead people in that?
I think ideally, after doing it many years, we would like to go, guys, this is the book, this is the rule, But I think it's such a discovery because it's like I said, multifaceted, and you really need to discern. I think in Doxa Deo we've learned the power of team, and I think we all talk from that. The moment you include more people, we are not a ministry that wants the gifting of one person to be something that is glorified.
Absolutely.
So I think the wisdom in the team that you have, the leadership team full-time in the church, I think it's very honest and humble and powerful when any leader says, if you have to build a team, you go, guys, help me, I need a few people, can you cover me in the process? Or I don't have somebody yet to sit next to me like you had. Can some of you just come and discern with me to get the right people on board and make it the whole church in that moment, say we need strong prophetic worshipers on stage, help me build that team, get the wisdom, figure it out, listen to other people, get the information, and discussions like these maybe help to look for the warning signs and motivate people into the right direction.
Something that was very helpful to us is when in our process we've added one or two extra steps. And so there's always this question, but what do you do with somebody that you just auditioned? Because you said you don't give them the microphone at the moment they, even if they have the calling and the character and
just
everything.
The first.
So what do you do then? Do you make them sit during rehearsals and just look at the band rehearsing? And so for us, we've added two steps. The first step is collectively with all the people that came for auditions, I literally have this conversation that we're having right now. So listen, this is what I'm expecting of you, and this is what you can expect from me and from the leadership team.
That's good.
So that they have a very clear picture of this is what I'm signing up for. And I've realized that it's easier to have that conversation in the group than to, with every audition, have the whole discussion every time. So that might be helpful to somebody. And then the third thing we do, so the audition, then we have this discussion. But then we have a process where we go in all of those details that we mentioned, the calling, the chemistry, character. We do in-depth investment in their lives for a 4 or a 5 week process where we don't talk much about music, but we just talk about this is what we believe is worship. Let's talk about this. Let's have a discussion. And we invest in their lives for 4 or 5 weeks. And then once once they've completed that process, and that's also an indication of where their heart lies, is listen, I want to grow in this and not just play my instrument, which is not bad if somebody comes and say, listen, I'm passionate about music, I want to be part of the team. Okay, but I want to grow this part of your experience as well, and of who you are.
Sure. Yeah, and that integration process, I think sometimes there is a formal process that we want to put down, like an integration course or a 4 or 5 week thing, and then there's obviously the probation period, which I think is.
But you call it that?
Yeah, I call it that.
No, we don't. So that's the nice. There's no, like, we're different in that sense.
Yes. But so they know they're here testing it out for how long?
Yeah, so I think that is, I've made mistakes in the past with that, to say I have a 2 or 3 month period, and then I realize in the process there are faster runners and slower runners. And I think so I communicated to say, as a leadership, we will decide when you are going to become part of the team, and we're going to have that discussion with you when we think you're ready.
Yes.
And then it places the responsibility again on them to decide the pace and to say how fast do they actually want to jump through the hoops in that sense. But I think you can't formalize that to say it's 3 months. Sometimes you break the spirit of people, or sometimes for some people it might be 5 months or 6 months. So I think we do that in a unique discussion, like you said, with the person. But in the integration course, you go into the backbone of what it means to be a worshipper.
And just make sure that picture is very clear. So that whenever they find themselves, that is not really me, can easily say. But I think maybe last comment on what you're saying is important, because we had people follow the process diligently that we communicated as well, and they weren't ready at all, and they thought, but I've done my 3 months, so when I'm on stage, and I have to say, because your heart isn't right yet. How do you say that? You know?
And how do you measure that?
Exactly. So we had to
now it's not, now it is.
So we had to get to a place to call in wisdom and say, you know what, you have to trust leadership. And this is what we feel is right. It's a spiritual thing. It's not a tick the box and you're in. That's what a dad in a family would do. My kids, it's not the same for everyone. You're ready. You can't do this yet, but we all trust that the heart is for people and for team and for the best of everyone. And I think we try and do it in that way.
And I communicate from the beginning. If you feel at any stage during this process that this is not the place for you, we're going to release you with the biggest smile, and we still love you, and we're going to help you find another space of serving, because that's also important.
That's great.
Guys, ongoing discussion, we'll have that again and again and again, but thanks for your wisdom, and we trust that we all know how to build teams well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Iets aan het praten.